Hello and welcome back to, another episode of the Daily Pilgrim channel. So just popping this GoPro battery on the charging station. Try and keep it organised. I've got about 40 batteries for the different cameras, and depending on which one I'm using, I try and keep them all charged. So this is episode 6 of the legendary and now nostalgic podcast, long since sadly demised. But as I said, it's nostalgia. No better word for it than that, is there? It was nice to hang on to the episodes because, as I've said, and I think just about every single intro to the podcasts, it was how I was feeling at the time, and that was quite important. It was part of the Daily Pilgrim journey. So in this episode, and I had a bit of a listen to it before I put this video together, and I thought, yes, this was quite an exciting one, actually. I discovered Quora for the first time, which I had no idea existed as a thing. But I went off on a little adventure. I slept, first of all, in a service station, then in a lay-by. There are some more exciting episodes coming up. You might want to fast forward to those if you don't want to just listen to some middle-aged bloke in a cardigan bimbling and bumbling, which I think I do quite a bit, well, in a few of the episodes, if I'm honest. But this one, I went on a little bit of an adventure. The drains exploded, not literally. They blocked, actually, rather than exploded, outside the house. So, yes, for nostalgia, and with the drains being as they were, I can also say that the content of this is quite literally full of, what's the word I'm looking for? Full of interesting things. I hope you enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Pilgrim podcast, once again with me, your host, Alex. Now, it's been an exciting week, but then you wouldn't expect anything less from me, would you really? This week, location-wise, this is the cupboard under the stairs again. I took a nice deep breath full of oxygen before I started, and hopefully that will sustain me for the 20 minutes or so that we're in the booth. Now, as we begin, I should explain, normally I do dozens and dozens of takes. This week, I thought, no, just one take, that's all it's going to need, and I'll be ready to go. Unfortunately, my first take, I didn't even get the first word out. Hello and welcome came out as a hello, and so I decided to cut it and start again. Now, what a week it's been. But I'm not going to start with those exciting things that, you've come to love me for, hopefully. Instead, I'm going to talk to you about Quora. No, this isn't a plug for another platform. But it was recently suggested to me that Quora was a really, really good place to engage with people, particularly with the fact that I'm on this quest, this journey, and I thought, well, part of it was wanting to help other people that may have been through their own challenges or are going through their own challenges. And Quora, somebody suggested, was a question and answers site. Now, it might be that you all know all about Quora. It might be you've using it for years. It might be that now I say, oh, I've just discovered it, you're all thinking, well, absolutely, it's like Marks and Spencer, isn't it? Of course it's there. But the honest truth is I had no idea that it even existed. But having got into it, a few people have started asking me questions, and I thought this was really good. This is the ultimate engagement, isn't it? Somebody's actually asking me for my advice, my thoughts, and my contribution. This week, I had 2 rather interesting questions, and they do seem to be coming through on the whole separation divorce thing, purely because that was the reason that, my whole life purpose changed and this whole new direction started. Now, one person asked what was the number one reason for getting divorced. Not mine in particular, but what was the most important reason for getting divorced? Now, this was quite a challenging one when I sat down. I thought, oh, this is easy. I'll sit down and do this in 2 minutes. But then I realised, well, no, it wasn't asking me what my number one reason for divorce was. It was asking what is the number one reason that you should get divorced. Well, I don't know if any one person can answer that for every other person out there. But the best I can possibly come up with is happiness versus unhappiness. You see, for many years, I accepted things as they were, and I never really thought about, well, how would life be if I left, if she left, if we just separated, did our own thing? And for years, there was somehow this unknown, but also, well, we must carry on no matter what. It wasn't even really a thought beyond, how can I put this? Well, I mean, I'd thought seriously about, unhappiness at various stages and maybe I should leave, but I never considered what it would actually really be like beyond that. The idea of, well, I could leave because we're having an argument right now or things are bad right now is very different from, well, actually, how would life be completely changed? Now, the other thing was asking about separation and saying, well, how did separation affect you? Now, this was a more direct thing, I suppose, that I could answer specifically for my circumstances, but I think this is quite generic for everyone, really. Whilst the circumstances might be different, here are the things that I came up with that you really should consider. I was a full-time dad. Now, I was working full-time as well. For me, 100 to 120 hours a week was quite normal. I would do at least 40, 50, maybe 60 hours a week of actual work, but I would then be running people to and from ballet. I'd be cooking meals. I'd be doing housework, all of those things. I very much identified myself as being not only half of a whole, myself and my partner, but also as the family man, the person that was somehow in charge of putting everything together, holding things there, solving problems, and this was very much, I felt, my role. Now, when the separation took place, one of the biggest things that I noticed straight away is that I wasn't opening all the mail and organising appointments, doctor's appointments, making sure that we were in the right place at the right time, paying the ballet bills. All of those sorts of things suddenly changed. Now, you could argue and say, well, you haven't got to pay the bills anymore. But it was always joint funds, so it never really felt like me paying it. It was just how it was. But the idea of separation and somehow no longer being part of other people's lives, well, it comes in two levels, really, because first of all, you miss that. But secondly, you do start to form your own identity. And I don't just mean with regard to, being half of a whole with your partner, but no longer being that full-time family man. You suddenly start to think, well, I've got time to myself. What am I going to do with it? Now, I've never been someone to sit down and sort of binge watch box sets and things like that. Instead, I like to do things. I really am not the sort of person that can sit still even for 5 minutes, let alone anything else. So I did come up with this whole recreate myself and YouTube podcast thing. And I suppose that was my way of dealing with it. But I know everyone is going to deal with it slightly differently in their own way. And so to answer the question by not answering the question, what I tried to say is I can give you some ground rules for what I would suggest to be how you would tackle it. But ultimately, what you really have to do is sit down and work out a plan about what you want your life to be. And it's only when you've decided that you can really start to move forward and do it. And it's only then at that point that you can say, well, how is this different from how things were? And so how has the separation affected me? I don't know if that's clear as mud. That was my personal thoughts, and I was trying to be very, very serious and very helpful, offering that, if it's useful. Now, I'm going to move slowly into the humorous things that happened this week. I'm sure you will all remember, how could we all forget, that 2 weeks running, 2 new tyres were required on the camper, and how delighted I was about this. Somebody even this week said to me that, was I becoming disillusioned with the camper van? No, not at all. When I went out to top the air pressure up on the wheels this morning, I was delighted to find that not 1, but 2 tyres, incidentally the two that haven't been changed. No, they're not flat, they're not punctured, but I wasn't able to put air in them because the valves, rather than having little plastic dust caps, they've got metal dust caps, and they've actually seized on. I can't get them off, and I have a sneaky feeling that if I tried to force it, I would rip the valve out of the tyre. So, third week running, and this time 2 minor challenges with regard to wheels and tyres on the camper. I have decided not to play or mess with it. I'm going to hope that it is okay today, and then I will take it to the tyre place, probably on Monday or Tuesday, and say, please, would you be so kind as to have a look and either take them off or put some new valves on? Thank you so much. And I'm hoping that that'll be the end of it. I can't cope with any more wheels or tyres on the camper. I absolutely love it. I still do. It's such a happy place, and it has got so many advantages, and I really love driving it, even though I did drive it into a tree this week. I'll come to that in a moment. However, it is a lovely place. I just wish that the wheels and what have you would finally, an end to it, please. So, vehicles. Does anyone want to buy a Ford Ka? I put a very, very simple advert up, and I think you'll all remember last week I said, right, no tyre kicking, no messing around, it's $8.50, take it or leave it. Well, everybody left it, so I reduced the price this week from $8.50 to $5.50. I did also offer one person to have it for £100 for charity. You know who you are, and you very quietly disappeared into the into the background, really. So yes, person who know who you are, it's still there if you want it. But yes, $5.50 to the rest of the world if anybody wants it. Now, when I was doing the advert for that this week, and I was changing it on Facebook, I decided that I would also put it on eBay. So I posted the car on eBay, nothing particularly special there. I just cut and paste the advert, posted it on eBay, and I don't really use eBay. I haven't used the account for ages and ages, so I sort of went through the, you haven't used your account for ages button. Do you still want to use it? Yes, and I set everything up. And I then thought, I have got a cunning idea. The idea, I have to say, was simple, straightforward, beautiful almost, poetic, artistic, and above all, brilliant. I thought I would sign one of my new little calling card business cards things, autograph it if you will, and I would put it on Facebook and on eBay, and it was more than anything a sort of a marketing gimmick, if I'm perfectly honest. It was just to say to everyone on Facebook, hey look, I'm selling one of my signed business cards. Now, I know that I struggle to get my head through most doorways because it's so inflated anyway, but I did think that selling my own autograph for £100 was a good idea. I thought, well, it'll certainly get, people will look at it, won't they? A friend of mine said, well, you can get Arnold Schwarzenegger's autograph for £5. Why would anyone pay £100 for yours? He then asked me if I was open to offers. I am most certainly open to offers, but if you read the small print, the fine print if you will see that out of that £100 that I'm asking, £95 will be going to cancer research. So I wasn't really selling it. £95 for charity, £5 for my time, including of which £2 would probably go in the charity box, and £2 for expenses. £1 for myself. Oh well, not a huge amount to ask, I'll admit, but there we are. Now, it was what happened next that I suppose really, really made me laugh this week. You see, having put the advert up, about 5 hours later I decided, I'm going to do a bit of tweaking, and maybe I'll change the price, maybe I'll do something. eBay, and I have to admit, for security reasons, they were marvellous. They sent me an email saying somebody had hacked my account. I couldn't possibly have done this sort of thing myself, and shut my account down. I can get the account reactivated, but it is going to mean that I've got to speak to a person on the tech chat. And bearing in mind there was a wait for this, I just wasn't that engaged with getting my eBay account opened up. I don't use eBay. So, what can I say? It was me. It wasn't a third party trying to sell my signed business card pretending to be me. It was me. Oh well, thank you, eBay. So this week, 2 rather interesting things happened to me. I won't say they were funny. I thought they were, well, one of them was jolly unpleasant. The first one occurred yesterday. Well, and also sort of this morning. One of the neighbours came and knocked at the door and said, "We've got a problem." Now, whenever anybody says that to me, it always strikes fear into my heart. What is this problem, I think to myself? How can we sort it, resolve it, face the challenge? Well, apparently, the drains were all blocked. This was not a particularly nice thing, and there's 5 houses that all meet together in the middle with the drainage system, and then the main drain sort of takes over. Now, there was some ambiguity about who had responsibility for doing this. Nobody really wanted to pay, and indeed, hopefully, now nobody is. You see, what's happening is the water company are apparently responsible, and they are going to come out. I was on the phone for 36 minutes. Well, no, I was on hold for 36 minutes, at which time I was addressed by a gentleman who kept thanking me for providing that information. Now, he was nice and he was trying to be as helpful as he could, but he was clearly reading from a script, and this was a little bit frustrating. However, the beauty was that after we had had lovely conversations and he had thanked me profusely for providing information, and he said that it would be dealt with within the next 72 hours. Now, I think this is a bit of a long time scale considering it's blocked drains. However, it was the way that he said it that was absolutely priceless. Again, reading from his script, bless him. He told me that somebody would attend between now and 1:56 p.m. in 3 days' time. That's very, very precise without being precise at all. This morning I had a knock at the door, and one of the neighbours has informed me that the problem is getting even worse. So I have sent another message to the good people of the water board and found the phone number for him to phone as well. Between us collectively, I'm sure that we can take this sewage problem, and although it's a shit job, I'm sorry, had to say it, someone is going to have to do it. However, what else happened to me this week that was exciting? Well, I'm glad you asked. You see, I went on a trip down to see Beth at Plymouth. And a couple of years ago, when I did one of the very many trips down to see Beth, I stayed at the Motorway Services overnight. Why would I do that, you ask? Well, it's because I didn't want to pay for car parking overnight, and if you stay in the Motorway Services all the way through the night, you're going to be charged £15 or £100 if you don't pay your £15 at the little thing in the shop. So I came up with a genius plan. Now, I think it was a genius plan. Other people thought it was clinically insane, but I thought it was a brilliant plan. I would drive to the first Motorway Services that I came to, which was Michael Wood Services on the M5. And I would sleep for an hour and a half, setting an alarm. And then, after an hour and a half, I would wake up, I would nip into the loo, I would splash my face with cold water, come back to the car, start the car, and drive to the next service station, where I would sleep for another hour and a half, and repeat the pattern. Now, because it was the middle of winter, and it really was the middle of winter, this way I kept the car nice and warm, I didn't die of hypothermia, and I didn't waste any unnecessary fuel. And as you know, if you start the car, particularly on older cars, unless you physically drive it, the heat from the engine doesn't come through into the heating system properly. So driving it physically and keep leapfrogging in that way, well, was a perfect solution. Now, this worked 2.5 years ago, or whenever it was. I started out with the best of intentions to do it 2 nights ago. I very quickly realised that I was getting older, more miserable, more cynical, and had a camper van, not a Ford Focus. I didn't want to do that, so I found a lay-by. And I stealth camped in the lay-by. And this isn't particularly exciting. You're thinking, well, no, this is true. However, the lay-by didn't have one of these sort of concrete crash barriers or anything, so it was literally just a little pull-in off the side of the road. And I had no idea that cars and lorries could pick up so much speed between the roundabout and the 16 feet to where I was parked. Cars were zooming past all night. And about 11 o'clock, I got the camera out, did a little piece to camera, very roughly and very dewy-eyed, to the effect, "Why did I pick here?" or something along those lines. Now, it was a miserable night's sleep, and I woke up at about 4:30 in the morning and decided that I would be off once again. But something that isn't funny, but very, very empowering, was what happened when I got to Exeter Services. So this week, I'm not going to leave you on a humorous note, but rather a very positive one. Because the whole purpose of the Daily Pilgrim channel is to develop, evolve, create a new person, to be yourself, create a new life, redefine yourself and be what you want to be, post-divorce and separation in my case. 2.5 years ago, I was a broken man. I was literally a broken man. My heart had been ripped out. My whole purpose for being had been destroyed, and I didn't know where I was or where I was going. 2.5 years ago, when I was in Exeter service station at 7 o'clock in the morning, the last services on the route, I begrudgingly went into the services, bought a packet of baby wipes and tried to ablution myself miserably in the back of a Ford Focus, basically rather cheesed off. Life was pretty bad. And, well, what was just, not going to say what was the point in it all, but, why had this happened? I was miserable, I was down, and I was sad. But this year, some 2.5 years later, I stood with pride. Stood in the middle of Exeter Services. Yes, you can laugh if you want. But as I stood there with the basking early morning sunlight on me, having ablutioned myself with a same packet, not literally the same packet, but a similar packet of baby wipes, and splashing myself with cold water from a bottle of Volvic, I really, really felt alive and empowered. I really, really had done exactly what I set out to do, and that was change my life for the better. Now, I don't know what stage any of you may be in with your journey of recreating yourself, but the most powerful thing in the whole world, and believe me, this is true, the most powerful thing you can do is stand there and think, I did it. I wanted to recreate my life, and I just did it. So that's it for this week. I'd like to say thank you very, very much indeed for listening, and I do hope that this podcast is not only entertaining, but a little bit helpful. Believe me, when I started the divorce and separation process some 2.5 years ago, life was pretty crap. Today, life is very, very good. And for those of you that have shared with me on this journey so far, and hopefully will continue to do so, I sincerely thank you. Thank you also for listening this week, and I do hope that you'll be back next week. The oxygen's now run out. It's time to go. So I would just say finally, it's been a pleasure. Good night, and see you next week.